Hey, welcome to this Rosemon Burst Mode deck profile for BT14. I'm still Regina and I have a confession. This is just an updated version of my BT13 Rosemon Burst Mode deck. So if a lot of this deck looks familiar, spoiler alert, it is. There were some new cards introduced in BT14 that made me tinker a little bit with this deck and that helped turn Rosemon into an absolute menace that stops decks in their tracks for a while. So, without further ado, let's get into it. The 4 eggs you'll be using for this are the Togemon from EX4. So drawing your deck is still super important because you need to see pieces early and as quickly as you can. The amount of times you'll be suspending your own Digimon is high, so you'll definitely be getting a lot of use out of this egg, and the more pieces you have in your hand, the more choices you'll have to make plays. I know that the Tanemon from this set was really nice to have to give it a little bit of a DP boost. However, the thing for me is that this burst mode deck for me is more about board control and not about board wiping, so I really appreciate the draw over the DP boost. Our rookies have been weeded out in every which way, but we are still running 4 Searcher Lalamon and 4 of the Searcher Palmon, because again, pieces are important. And as this is a burst mode focused deck, I want to filter to the Yoshino as quickly as possible to make those burst evolutions free. Palmon, though, can also just be pure value when it comes to search, because paying 4 for potential 2 pickup is a really good return and can help set up your game plan for the next turn. So the next one that I've done here is I've actually added 2 of the new Palmon from this set. So at the start of your main phase, you can tag a Digimon to gain an effect. And with the way this deck is set up, you can activate the all turns effect that you're going to give that Digimon, which really actually helps extend your turn. I also really love the inherit on this. It is the same as the Lalamon inherit. It helps reduce the evolution cost. So again, the more memory that you can save in this deck, the better off that you'll be actually in the end here. Surprisingly enough, the last rookie that I'll have is going to be the BT9 Palmon, the one that says, hey, you cannot play Digimon by effects. As a friendly reminder, this is a card that also affects you, so keep an eye out on when you want to play it. However, this is one of your best counters against Fenrir really early on in the game, as you're going to want to force them to delete this Digimon, which helps you set up another body in the meantime. The 4s here have changed kind of a little bit, but not by much. I'm still at a full playset of the BT13 Sunflowmon because the ability to help reduce evolution costs is still paramount to the strategy of this deck. I love being able to just say, hey, I'm going to suspend this, reduce it by 2, go into a Lilamon for potentially free if you have the Lalamon or the Palmon inherit here and a green tamer out, but it just really helps cheapen evolutions, and the fact is that this green deck can go really far really fast with just this Sunflowmon. I am still running the BT10 Sunflowmon at a 3 of. This really helps you play out another body for effects, either to search out pieces, so either you can play these out and search one a little bit more, dig a little bit deeper, but it can actually also help out the new level 4 that is inside this deck, which is going to be the BT14 Togemon. So this Togemon, which I run as a 3 of, is actually genuinely one of my favorite new cards. By suspending itself or another Digimon, you can play a green tamer with a reduced cost of 3. This means that you can potentially memory choke an opponent to 1 and play a memory tamer for 1. Before, you would have to be like, oh, okay, I'll just play back a memory tamer if my opponent puts me at like 3 or etc. or whatever, right? This actually really helps you control that a little bit, and there's a potential that if you have multiple of these on the board, you can get a lot of tamers out for very cheap. I think the value on this is immense in the correct situation. So, onto our level 5s, and speaking of value in playing free tamers, the Lilamon from BT13 is still at a playset, as we do want our memory tamer out for as little cost as possible. Being able to use this Sunflowmon into this Lilamon and getting a free tamer out is just really nice. The Yoshinos are just super fantastic on here, so I do really love that. Our next 2 level 5s are actually both Digisorption candidates. I'm going to have 1 Cherrymon and 1 Blossomon. They are still staying the same from the last deck list. Cherrymon for the potential redirection, and Blossomon actually for just free evolutions. I love Digisorption. I could talk for hours about it as a mechanic and how I'm so sad that it will never be what it once was. Both of these are actually vegetation, so it also helps in being able to pick up with this this Palmon searcher, because there is a chance that you could search your vegetation and then search your fairies. So if you're missing a 5 into a 6, it's really nice to be able to search out 2 top end vegetation pieces as well. The last 2 level 5s in this lineup are actually part of the Blast Ace mechanic. I'm running 2 Lillymon Aces as they're fantastic in a pinch. You can control boards in really kind of unique and fun ways with the suspension and the bottom decking. Even able to play for 4 and just on play suspending a Digimon is really nice, especially with some of the new teamers that you got in this set. You have a lot of 4s in this deck that you're able to suspend, and so there's really some interesting ways that you can bait out attacks from your opponents, where they're like, oh, your level 4 is only a 3k, so let me attack into it. And you're like, okay, I'm going to Blast Ace Evolution. You can get rid of that Digimon that's attacking, and you can get rid of another body that may potentially have on the field. So, moving on to our level 6s. I think this BT13 Rosemon stays winning, and it is at a full 4 of in this deck. I truly, truly adore this Rosemon, and I find it to be better than its BT14 counterpart for my personal purposes and playstyle. You can suspend a lot with this, and you can unsuspend yourself as well. So being able to sort of just go into this suspended, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers, and then unsuspend it, and then that alternates effect, making sure that you can suspend another Digimon Tamer, gives you a lot of presence and board control, and it's just a really nice way to just sort of manage your opponent. Especially if this is unsuspended and they're attacking with either a Digimon or suspending a Tamer, you can stop a lot of people's game plans by just saying, okay, cool, now that that effect's resolved, suspend the other thing that's important to your game plan. And it's just a nice way to catch people by surprise. However, just because I'm not as in love with the BT14 Rosemon doesn't mean I'm still not playing them. I am putting this at a 3 because I find it just as a way to bridge into burst mode, but it does have a 1 Digivolving and 1 attacking effect, so you are able to at least suspend and unsuspend. I just find that this old Rosemon fits my playstyle way more in terms of being able to like control my opponent, but this one is still really nice for a slightly aggressive gameplay. If you're wanting to focus on this Rosemon, I suggest switching out your eggs to the Tandemon just to give yourself that little extra DP boost to get rid of a lot of other Digimon, because what will happen is that you can at least like you're able to, oh, okay, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, you'll activate a Tandemon effect, then you'll be able to unsuspend this Digimon and swing over it. And now the last Digimon in these decks are actually going to be our level 7s. I'm all in on burst mode for this deck. I am playing at a full 4 of. This format, I've found that there's a lot of ways for decks to get rid of something like a Quartzmon, so the burst mode actually really helps control that as well. Even once the burst is gone, they'll be unable to suspend versus a Quartzmon, where if the Quartzmon is gone, if they have ways to unsuspend, they will. I really love the concept of this burst mode a lot. Like being able to just consistently be like, oh, I'm going to suspend a Tamer, I'm going to suspend a Digimon, and I'm going to trash stuff. This is the aggressive part of the deck. And I've found that I don't mind crashing into another 15k body because the burst mode tag will still be there at the end of the turn when you get rid of the burst evolution. And honestly, in my testing, the 4 burst mode has just been absolutely lovely to have, and every time I see it, it's like, oh yes, this is when I want the burst mode. That's actually it for the Digimon specifically, and now we just have to round out the deck with our Tamers and our options. So our memory Tamer in this is still going to be Yoshino, who will be at a full playset. She just sort of helps you do it all for this deck in particular. She helps you gain back the memory from evolution costs. She starts you at 3 memory, and then this burst evolution can be free. You just bounce it back to your hand, and honestly, I've actually found that there are games where like I can burst evolution and still play her at that same turn for a really cheap cost, either because of the Togemon here or because I have some way of getting into another Lilamon. And the big reason why that happens is because of the other Tamer that we haven't set. But again, honestly, Yoshino is such a paramount to the strategy that sometimes I find, or early on in like old iterations of this deck, that I found that if you didn't see her within the first 2 to 3 turns, you were in for a really rough spot. However, we have a way to help sort of fix that in this set, and that comes in the form of our new Mimi from this set. I have it at a 3 of, just because I don't want to overload this sort of board with tamers, right? It goes really well with the Togemon here, and obviously less so with the Lilamon. Adding another search to this deck is never a bad thing, right? Her added benefit is that during your turn, if an effect suspends your Digimon or your opponent's Digimon, you can suspend her to gain a memory. And honestly, there is so much in this deck that either suspends you or suspends your opponent that this just basically is almost a free evolution. In tandem with either this Sunflowmon, it's just, you're like, okay, cool, I'm going to evo into this for 1 and gain that back somehow, and it's just kind of really nice to have this on the field. Generally when I open up with this, I feel a little more comfortable because it's also still it's a tamer, it's another search, and it's just you can never go wrong with adding more searches into your deck. So our last couple of cards are going to be options here. The new training boosts honestly sort of speak for themselves, really, right? You pay 2, you look at the top 2, you add something with a similar color, and then you can reduce evolution costs. I'm really running this just at 2 because it helps to be able to pick up tamers with this, or just fix your hand if possible. So again, like the problem of like maybe not seeing Yoshinos for your burst modes is really helped by both the Mimi and the training boost. And because of the reduced evolution cost for these, and because of the Mimis, going into burst mode actually feels a little bit easier sometimes, even if you don't have the Yoshino to play it for free. And honestly, sometimes in this format, right, I've seen games where I want to just go into the burst mode because then they can't touch it with something like the Fenrir Lugamon deck. And of course, the last but never least card in this deck is Hidden Potential Discovered. I do not think that I will ever build a green deck that does not have this card. It is one of the single best green cards to exist, and there's a very good reason why it was limited to 1. It can help you in a pinch when you're short memory to go up to your line, and again, can make these evolutions for free if you have another body out. Essentially, this card can win you games. I'm a slightly superstitious person, so I've had games where, like, if I go to a game 3 and I open this up with my hand, I have a good feeling. And I've even burned it, like, super early on just to, like, go into a 4 or 5 and be like, I need to do it this way. And that sort of makes all the difference in the world. Green is fantastic at spinning out bodies and reducing evolution costs, and maybe one day they'll unban this card. And that would be the day that I know that, like, we've thrown all logic out the window, because this is one of those cards that the reason that it was hit to 1 is for a very good reason. But again, every single green deck I have will always have that card. So, and hey, that's really it. This version of Rosemon is a little bit more aggressive than what I think I've had before, but it does still focus on controlling the board, right? Like, you still want your opponent to have bodies because you want to be able to stun them with the burst mode, and you want to be able to make sure that you have more bodies and tamers to be able to trash more of their security. So it's an interesting mix of both control and aggression that I found to have a lot of fun. Back-to-back burst modes can break down a lot of people's decks because they're not able to do a lot of stuff that they want, right? You're in a format that focuses a lot on being able to suspend tamers, on being able to suspend Digimon, and the burst mode, honestly, it puts a pin in their game plans for at least 1 turn. And again, in Digimon, sometimes a turn is all you really need. So this just really gives you a lot of, like, choices and options to be able to just say, hey, you're gonna stop your game plan? Well, I keep going with my own, and I have been having so much fun with it. So hopefully you try out the deck, and if you enjoy it, please let me know. But thank you for watching.